So today I am painting some robins in watercolour. I'm going to make some little Christmas cards. I'll show you what I did. Started off with a sheet of watercolour paper. This is Sea White of Brighton 350 GSM. And then I'm tracing on some designs. I drew some circles first. I drew around a tin lid. You don't have to use circles, I just think they look nice on the card. And the basic principle is to go through each bird one by one. So you need to wet the underbody first. I'm using a colour called Davy's Grey. You could mix your own grey together. Use some dirty water from your pot, from your palette, or just use clean water, so white. So wet the underbelly and the underside of the bird. Drop in some yellow. This is a very bright lemon yellow. And then you need some red or orange. Just play around with your palette, see what you've got. I've gone for a fairly natural looking mix here, to kind of a burnt sienna with a touch of red in it. And I drop it into the yellow area, and then I drop in some stronger red near the top. And just let them blend together on the paper. Try not to fuss too much. Don't worry about going outside the lines. It all adds to the charm in the end. So you do each one. You do all 5 birds, however many you're working on. As you can see, I'm not being particularly careful. So by the time you've done the last one, the first one is going to be practically dry, and then you can put the top half in. So now I'm using a brown, and this is probably burnt umber with a little bit of yellow added in. Or you could use a burnt sienna, any mid brown will do. And basically you use a light or mid brown for the top half of the bird, and then you flick in some darker, that is burnt umber, for the wingtips. And for the tail, it's a bit of a random mix of the two. And then I also drop in and reshape the head with some of the darker brown. By the time I've done all those, I then move on to the legs. This is a mix of red and brown, I would think. Any natural looking colour like this will do. And then once they're all dry-ish, the last one's still not dry, I reinforce the dark areas with some burnt umber again. It's a good idea to do the wingtips, I think, in this process. I've also done some areas of the feet, the legs. Probably not that necessary. Good if you want to practice your fine control though. So I had accidentally missed off the tail. So you can see there that I did a dark stripe and a light stripe over the top of it. And here's me doing the little details on the feet. You will also notice that all the eyes are orange. I've done this a couple of times, and if you can, it might be an idea to leave that part of the bird dry, paint around the eye socket, in other words. Leave it white, and then you'll have a natural white highlight that you can use when you come to paint the eye. We'll come back to that later. So I'm just finishing off all the birds, and this is the first stage done. And then you let them all dry completely before you put the very last area in, which is the eye and the beak. Now, because I painted these orange, I'm painting the whole lot black rather, which is a Payne's grey. And then I wipe my brush, clean it, and dry it so it's damp. Just lift off all the other area at the top of the beak and in one section of the eye where the highlight would be. And then I'm going round, once I've done all those, I'm going round and adding a little bit of shading under the wing, which is just a little bit dirty paint off my palette. And any areas that I think need reinforcing. So you look at each bird, and this one gets some more dark on the wingtip, and some of them get some more brown along the top of the head, and so on. You just decide where you need to put some extra paint in. So here I've got a bristle brush, which I use for acrylic. I'm just using it to scrub out any hard lines that are formed on the puddles when I put some of the washes on. And there I am reinforcing a couple of the brown areas. And even some of the orange. Like I said, it's down to personal taste. You decide how orange and how brown your bird should be. Next, let them dry completely before you do this stage. Cut them out with a pair of scissors or a knife, a craft knife. So like I say, I've done this a couple of times now, so there's more than 5 here. There's one which I'd left the eye white and then painted black around it. Same on this one, and this one I tried a very red breast. This one was even more cartoony or stylized than the others. That one was a slightly more realistic one on a branch, and so on. I tried a few different poses and colours, and some of them have even got grey on. And here's the ones that I forgot to leave the white of the paper on. You can always go back in with a gel pen or a touch of acrylic or a touch of white ink, whatever you normally bring your white back with. So now I've got some cards from the craft shop, and I've got some of the little adhesive tabs. I flip one over. As you can see, I painted on the back of an old piece of paper I've been swatching on. So I'm pulling them off of my thumbnail here, which is not a very successful way to do it. I actually swapped to using a knife, a little craft knife. Obviously you need to be slightly careful as you do that, just to flick off the self-adhesive area. And then when you've managed to do that, make sure your card is the right way around, press down your painting, job done. Word from our sponsor. And there they are. Not I hope you found that helpful, useful. And if you did, here's another video you could watch.